would get legitimately elected, and then they would try to do away with elections and do away with opposition and do away with a free press. And you could see it in countries where, well, Hitler was duly elected.
That's right.
Right? And so all of a sudden, somebody with those tendencies, those dictatorial, authoritarian tendencies, would be like, oh, okay, we're going to shut this down. We're going to throw these people in jail. And they didn't usually telegraph that. Trump is telling us what he intends to do.
And you gave me a great segue, because speaking of nipping things in the bud, you know, for years, a whole bunch of us were saying that they're calling all of the wrong people Nazis, and the people that are doing it tend to have some Nazi tendencies, and we're certainly seeing that on the streets of many of our cities, unfortunately, and all over Europe and everywhere else. But Hillary Clinton, and you'll see with my connection here, Hillary Clinton went on The View this week, and you're not going to believe who she compared Donald Trump to.
People would get legitimately elected, and then they would try to do away with elections and do away with opposition and do away with a free press. And you could see it in countries where, well, Hitler was duly elected.
That's right.
Right? And so all of a sudden, somebody with those tendencies, those dictatorial, authoritarian tendencies, would be like, oh, okay, we're going to shut this down. We're going to throw these people in jail. And they didn't usually telegraph that. Trump is telling us what he intends to do.
How about what Trump did? Because he did not do away with the free press. He fought a free press all the time. He did not do away with elections. He's not the president, as far as I know. Ian, this insanity, it's so damn unfortunate, because now when we have people behaving like the Nazis, going after Jewish shops, as you mentioned, and all of the other stuff, the words don't even have any meaning anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like, two things. One, Zelensky is actually doing all of these things, and she's presumably still a massive fan of Ukraine. So I'm not too sure she actually cares about fascism or any of these things. But also, if you just look at the Nazi analogy, as we've talked about, you know, during this show, there are actual Nazis on the streets right now screaming for the same thing that Nazis wanted. Outside the Sydney Opera House, for example, people were literally screaming, "Gas the Jews." You see pro-Palestinian people holding up swastikas, painting swastikas on Jewish students' doors. Like, Nazis are here. They just don't happen to be white in this case, and they don't happen to be part of the political narrative that people like Hillary Clinton want to push. And so it doesn't count. And also, if you look at really the safety of Jews, if that's going to be the metric we use to measure the level of Nazism in the world, then the world was a much safer place for Jews under Donald Trump than it was under Barack Obama, and certainly under Joe Biden. So the Hitler analogy is obviously stupid, but it's incredibly dangerous when we have people who are on the streets right now cheering for Hitler. It's just unbelievable.
CJ, is this the great trick that Democrats do all the time? It's like we all see what's happening on the streets, we hear the chants, everything that Ian just referenced right there, but then they can get someone like Hillary to go on mainstream media and then say Hitler in a way that, for all the liberals who are breaking right now, and we know it's happening right now, a lot of liberals are kind of waking up right now, they suddenly hear that and then they immediately go back the wrong way because of that very tactic.
You're exactly right. You know, the same, playbook that they run, towards Jewish Americans is the same playbook they've always ran towards Black Americans. They compare every single conservative to a white supremacist, to a Klansman, to, some terrible, white supremacist or Nazi. And it's the only thing that they know how to do. The only thing that they know, the only way they know how to win is by pitting white people against Black people, Jews against, everyone else. And that, because identity politics is all they have to run on. They can't run the economy. They can't run on education. They can't run on public safety. So they run on this just absolute demagoguery, which is absolutely disgusting. And yeah, to Ian's point, I thought she was talking about Zelensky for that entire little thing until she said Donald Trump at the end, considering he is literally now saying that there shouldn't be an election. He also consolidated all of the media into one state-run media entity. Everything that she just said is literally what Zelensky is doing. But of course, no criticism of him from her. I wouldn't expect that. But again, to your point, all of these anti-Semitic attacks that we're seeing in the country right now are not being waged by people wearing MAGA hats. No, what we're seeing are people who are big supporters of folks like former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, big supporters of progressive politicians like Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar. These are people who are not trying to conceal who they are in any which way. They are calling for the extermination of the Jewish people. They are chanting from the river to the sea. They are siding with Hamas. And it's so crazy to kind of say that out loud sometimes, because it's like, oh, because it's one thing to side with Democrats. It's one thing to side with Republicans. Siding with Hamas should have some weight to it when you say it, because they are literal terrorists. Imagine if a few years ago we were going around saying that people were siding with ISIS. Those people would be excommunicated from society for very good reason. It is not, it's just not a moral stance to have in any which way.
Yeah. Basically clean up the Nazis in your own party, Hillary, and then we'll deal with your other imaginary Nazis.